Yo, what's going on, guys? Chris Barner here, Overtime Athletes. I'm with my man here, Jordan Haslam. Jordan is one of our longest coaches here at OTA. He works with a lot of a full gambit between, our youth all the way up to our professional level athletes here. And this past year, Jordan has worked with one of his pitchers, one of his athletes, and has got him around from the mid 80s to high 80s, all the way up into the mid 90s over the course of a year. And so what I figured would be a great video is to be able to go through the progressions that we utilize, and I'll have Jordan speak to some of that as well, as far as how he was able to get him there. And more focused on the exact progression that we utilize with our ballistic med ball tosses to be able to get him from an 88 to 94 over the course of a year. So, kicking things off, first one is what we're gonna go through is our soccer toss progression. Now, this is the main movement that we utilize to really focus on that extension, flexion, and really focus on producing more force through that anterior chain. So the first one that we're gonna go over is gonna be our basic sit-up toss. So Jordan's gonna lie back, legs straight, ball overhead. He's gonna come up with force and be able to explode the ball, releasing it into the wall, boom. Now, the next progression from there, right, where again, the biggest thing that we wanna do is we wanna isolate these movements down to the most basic, right, movement where we control from a stability perspective, and then start opening it up to the most dynamic. So imagine these drills being introduced incrementally throughout an entire off season. So the next one is gonna get a little bit more dynamic, and it's gonna require a little bit more flexion extension of the trunk and the spine. And what you're gonna see him do is do a Swiss ball med ball soccer toss. So he's gonna come back. The Swiss ball is gonna allow us to get a greater extension. And then as he comes up, he's going to flex, boom, and be able to explode the ball forward. Coming up, go ahead and second one. Yep, good. Really focusing on opening up that spine as much as you can, and obviously focusing on that concentric portion of the movement where he's releasing the med ball. From there, we then can go to, or we might introduce first, a seated. So instead of from a sit-up position, the athlete's gonna be seated down on their butt. Think as long as you can in your trunk, med ball overhead, long as you can, extend it as you can without falling backwards, and then exploding, drawing the chest down as hard as they possibly can. So here, explode it, perfect. From there, the next progression is gonna be getting a little bit more of the hips involved, right? So as we go from a seated position or a sit-up position, and then now getting onto a kneeling position, we're able to gather a little bit more range of motion through the hips. So we'll go from a kneeling position right here. So do the exact same thing that we did, overhead soccer toss, big reach, snap down and explode. From there, the next progression could be a half kneeling. Now what the half kneeling does is it allows a little bit more stability, but also what this does is from what we like to focus on, especially with pitchers, is that they're putting their break leg forward. So the arm that they're throwing with, that knee should be down where they're creating a break with the other leg. So what I like to tell the athlete is kick that leg a little bit forward in front of the knee, right? So the athlete can really rock back, make it a little bit more dynamic, right? And then snap it forward, big extension, follow through, and now they're creating a break and having to decelerate on that front leg. From there, we can go to a standing, static position, both feet, right, parallel, sitting right there, big extension, boom, slam it down. From there, we can get a little bit more dynamic, where it's more of a split stance, take a one step into the wall, one step, break leg. Again, focusing on that break leg, being able to create a break and stop. Again, as you can see in all of these throws, he's focused on, right, getting as much range as he can from extension and then being able to snap down, right, on the flexion side of things. And then the last one that we'll go over is gonna be our dynamic. You could think of this as an overspeed drill where he's gonna build up a little bit of momentum. Same thing, go through the full range of motion, create a break. So it's almost like a crow hop. Again, he's really focused, can't say it enough, on the mobility, right, or range of motion within the trunk or spine. So that's the exact progression that we do. Jordan, obviously you went through this with your athlete over the course of the year. You guys had great results. we're obviously talking about one segment. I know that you built his lower body up. You obviously focus on shoulder health, right? Different range of motion with the rotator cuff or internal external rotation. There's a plethora of things that you focus on, but this is one of the things that you really focus on from a force perspective to really get his velocity up. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
Yeah, so this pitcher, I've been working with him the last 5 years, and 2 years ago he was coming off elbow surgery. A lot of it was due to his mechanics. Has a super strong lower body, 500 plus deadlift, but just dealing with his shoulder mechanics, before this off season, I started digging into a lot of thrower programs, and one thing I got into was a guy who did programming for a lot of javelin throwers. And I just found it interesting in just how much he focused on the thoracic mobility and extension of the spine. So that kind of got me into a lot of these throwing drills and focusing on that. I mean, with pitchers, there's a lot of focus on the shoulder mechanics and stuff like that. But just in terms of increasing his force output, this was a great drill and a great progression I wanted to introduce to him and work him through to help him really build that overextension of that spine and that anterior power as we worked through this offseason and saw great results with it.
Absolutely. Now, out of all those drills, I know that from a blanket, just kind of talking under the umbrella of OTA, this is kind of our progression when it comes to med ball ballistics. Is there any drills within there, or is there any, is there any variations that you favored, and was there any that we didn't feature there through that progression of the offseason?
I think also one of the ones we used a lot was kneeling too, and this was from just going from both knees, kind of similar to the standing version, but just down from your knees, and also lying down, similar to the Swiss ball one where we added a med ball for a little more stability. So now they can overextend on a Swiss ball, or on the med ball. It's more stable than using the Swiss ball, and they can really focus on that extension without the Swiss ball kind of moving around and isolate that. That was a great version. So I would say that's probably a progression from the sit-up toss to the Swiss ball toss, is going from sit-up to the med ball, then to the Swiss ball. But yeah, no, this was a great progression of drills that we used, and again, saw great results with it.
Absolutely, the proof is in the pudding, and that's why he's throwing the hardest he's ever thrown. And I thought that was excellent to be able to share because of the results you were able to generate with that athlete. Last thing I'll say is, one of the biggest things that I've noticed that you really focused on was, obviously what they didn't see was you consciously focus on some of the mobility within the spine. And then as you work that mobility, you then reintegrate it back with these very high velocity, high force output movements. And that's key as well. So as he was focusing on some of those mobility within the spine, he would then take that now new range of motion, if you will, and then apply it in a fast action that the athlete's gonna see on the field. Is that about correct? Absolutely. Yeah, so that was excellent. I was able to also be able to witness on my end. So there you have it, guys. Jordan, really appreciate it, bro. Great job. Hope this helps, guys. I'll catch you guys next time.